a complete walkthrough of all 6 weeks and what to expect for the LMS, podcast, video intro, and marketing. Welcome to the Sober Advantage. Here is a question almost no one stops to ask. What would you be capable of if your brain ran at full voltage every single day? Not on your best mornings, not on the rare week you happen to sleep well. Every day, sharper focus, steadier mood, deeper sleep, and the kind of calm that doesn't have to be borrowed from a glass. That capacity is not a fantasy, and it is not reserved for people with unusual willpower. For most of us, it's simply being quietly taxed, a few percent here, a few percent there, by a substance so woven into our culture that we've stopped noticing the bill. Welcome to the Sober Advantage. I'm Professor Hanna, and over the next 6 weeks, I'm going to show you how to reclaim that capacity, not through prohibition, not through shame, and not by joining anything. Through a single practical evidence-backed reframe, the 90% alcohol-free lifestyle, sober the vast majority of the time, with rare intentional exceptions you actually choose. This is a course about optimization, not abstinence by willpower. It's for professionals, leaders, parents, athletes, and anyone who has quietly suspected they could feel and perform better and wants the science, the tools, and the daily practices to prove it on themselves. What this course actually is most messaging about alcohol falls into 2 camps, and both fail you. One is the culture's default. Drink because everyone drinks. Justify your way around every refusal and never examine the script. The other is the old temperance frame. Alcohol as moral failing, sobriety as deprivation, the drinker as weak. Shame, it turns out, is one of the worst behavior change engines ever devised, and it's why white-knuckle willpower so often collapses. The Sober Advantage takes a third path entirely. It treats your relationship with alcohol as an engineering problem, not a character problem, and it gives you the actual engineering, the neuroscience of what alcohol does and what your brain does when you remove it, the practices that accelerate recovery, yoga, meditation, breathwork, vagus nerve techniques, and the concrete lifestyle architecture, social scripts, mocktail craft, event planning that makes the change sustainable and even enjoyable. Every week pairs real science with a real practice you'll do in your own life, tracked in your own journal. The deepest premise of this course is simple and verifiable. Subtraction is an upgrade. You are not giving something up. You are getting back everything the subscription was quietly billing. The REM sleep, the clear mornings, the stable baseline, the unborrowed confidence, the evenings that remember themselves. And let me be clear about what this is not. This is not a program for treating alcohol dependence. If your honest self-assessment finds loss of control, morning use, or withdrawal, that is a medical condition with excellent modern treatment. And the bravest, strongest move is a professional conversation. The Sober Advantage is for the far larger group of people for whom alcohol is a habit and a cultural default rather than a clinical addiction. People who simply want their full edge back. How the 6 weeks are built. The course runs 6 weeks, roughly 4 hours of learning each week, and the sequence is deliberate. We begin with why. The motivation has to be real and personal, or nothing else holds. Then how, the practical launch of your own 90-day experiment. Then the practices that rebuild the nervous system from 3 angles, movement and meditation, then the vagus nerve and polyvagal regulation, then the deep neuroscience of how your brain literally regrows. And finally, the lifestyle, the social and culinary craft that turns a temporary experiment into a permanent, genuinely pleasurable way of living. You'll keep a daily journal throughout, rating energy, mood, and focus, so that by the end, you're not taking my word for any of this. You have your own data. Let me walk you through each week. Week 1, why go 90% alcohol-free? Everything starts with a reason strong enough to survive a hard day. Week 1 builds it. We look honestly at what alcohol does, even moderate amounts, to sleep, cognition, mood, and long-term health. And then at what happens when you take it away: prefrontal cortex recovery, dopamine rebalancing, reduced inflammation, and the disappearance of that low-grade morning anxiety the culture has normalized into a name, hangxiety. You'll see the recovery timelines, learn why sober leaders from Steve Jobs to Warren Buffett have credited clarity for their edge, and translate all of it into the life and work gains that matter to you specifically. Your assignment is a personal why manifesto and the start of a daily tracking log, your baseline captured before the change, so the change becomes undeniable. What you'll carry out of week 1: a clear, personal, motivating reason, an honest baseline of your current energy, mood, and focus, and the neuroscience to understand exactly what you're reclaiming and why. Week 2: how to start motivation without a method, evaporates. Week 2 is the method, the launch of your own 90-day experiment structured in 3 phases: prep, days 1 to 7, habit building, 8 to 30, and sustain, 31 to 90. You'll learn the practical techniques that make change easy rather than effortful: clearing the home, stocking non-alcoholic alternatives, building morning routines, and, crucially, the social strategies. Declining a drink is the only refusal our culture demands you justify, so you'll get tested scripts and the order first move that answers the table's questions before they're asked. This week is built on a principle that runs through the whole course. Design beats willpower. You don't outmuscle a habit, you re-engineer the environment around it. What you'll carry out of week 2: a launched 90-day experiment with your home and calendar redesigned, rehearsed social scripts you can actually use, and the daily replacement rituals that fill the space the old habit used to occupy. Week 3: yoga and meditation. Now we begin rebuilding the nervous system, starting with 2 of the most validated practices for recovery and neuroplasticity. You'll learn restorative yoga poses chosen specifically for stress and craving management: child's pose, legs up the wall, mountain, and more, and the meditation techniques that clinical programs like MBSR and mindfulness-based relapse prevention have proven: breath focus, the body scan, loving kindness, and urge surfing, the skill of watching a craving rise, crest, and pass without obeying it. And you'll understand the mechanism underneath, how these practices drive measurable brain change, strengthening the prefrontal cortex and hippocampus while calming the amygdala. Movement and stillness working together to rewire the very circuits alcohol disrupts. What you'll carry out of week 3: a daily yoga and meditation practice matched to your life, urge surfing as a portable, repeatable skill, and a felt understanding of how stillness and movement physically reshape the brain. Week 4: the vagus nerve and polyvagal theory. This is the week that explains your nervous system from the inside out. The vagus nerve is your body's master regulator, the brake pedal on stress, and you'll learn to operate it deliberately: the 478 breath, humming, cold water exposure, and other techniques that raise vagal tone and shift you on demand out of fight or flight. Then we frame it all with Stephen Porges's polyvagal theory, the ladder of nervous system states, the concept of neuroception, how your body scans for safety beneath conscious awareness, and co-regulation, how we steady each other. Cravings and stress are, at root, nervous system states. This week, you learn to change the state directly, which is one of the most powerful craving management skills in the entire course. What you'll carry out of week 4: a toolkit of on-demand techniques to shift your nervous system out of stress, a working map of your own states and what triggers them, and daily safety cues that make sobriety feel calm rather than effortful. Week 5: advanced neuroscience. Week 5 is where the science gets genuinely thrilling. Your brain is not fixed. It regrows. You'll explore neurogenesis, how alcohol suppresses the birth of new neurons in the hippocampus, and how in abstinence that process doesn't just resume, but can surge in a reactive burst. You'll learn synaptic plasticity, long-term potentiation, dendritic spine density, the literal rewiring that underlies every new habit and skill, and you'll see the timelines, the measurable increases in brain volume, and the enhancers, exercise, meditation, sleep, that accelerate the whole process. This is the week the abstract becomes physical. Your higher gear isn't a metaphor. It's neurons growing. What you'll carry out of week 5, a deep understanding of how your brain heals and rewires, a personal recovery timeline mapped to your own experiment, and the specific enhancers that speed regrowth so you can stack the deck in your own favor. Week 6, mocktails, food pairings, and sustainability. The final week makes the lifestyle permanent and genuinely enjoyable, because a sober life that feels like deprivation won't last, and it doesn't have to. You'll master mocktail craft, real recipes across categories, food pairings, and the techniques that make a non-alcoholic drink an event rather than an apology. Then we go further. Batch scaling, event planning, staffing, and even profitability, because hosting beautiful alcohol-free gatherings is both a social superpower and, for some of you, a genuine business opportunity. We close by compiling your long-term resources, apps, books, communities, and your sustainability plan, so the experiment becomes a way of living. What you'll carry out of week 6, a repertoire of mocktails and pairings you'll actually serve, the ability to plan and host alcohol-free events with confidence, and a complete sustainability plan with the resources to maintain your advantage for life. What you should expect of yourself. Expect to track. The daily journal, energy, mood, focus on a 1 to 10 scale, is not busy work. It's the instrument that turns belief into evidence. The students who transform are the ones who log honestly, because around week 3 or 4 they look back at week 1 and the data tells a story willpower never could. Expect the first stretch to be the hardest. The first week is architecture and a little awkwardness. The first month returns your sleep. The second returns your baseline mood. Somewhere in there arrives the sentence nearly everyone reports. I didn't know I could feel this clear. Trust the timeline. The early discomfort is withdrawal from a cultural habit, and it passes on a predictable schedule. Expect skills, not just abstinence. This course doesn't ask you to grit your teeth. It hands you tools, urge surfing, the 4-7-8 breath, the social script, the redesigned default, so that the change is engineered rather than endured. When a craving comes, you won't be fighting it with willpower. You'll be surfing it with a technique. Expect this to be about more than alcohol. The deeper skill you'll build is the ability to redesign any culturally scripted default, how you spend your evenings, what you reach for under stress, what you've simply always done without choosing it. Alcohol is the case study. Intentional living is the curriculum. What you'll have when you're done. By the end of 6 weeks, you'll hold a complete science-backed system for a sustainable 90% alcohol-free life, and your own logged data proving it works for you. Concretely, a personal motivation that holds under pressure, a launched and tested 90-day experiment, daily practices in yoga, meditation, and breathwork that regulate your nervous system on demand, a real understanding of how your brain heals and how to speed it, a repertoire of mocktails and the skill to host beautifully without alcohol, and a long-term sustainability plan with the community and resources to maintain it. Complete the requirements and you'll also earn certification in the Sober Advantage. But the deepest thing you'll have isn't any single skill. It's the advantage itself. The clear mornings, the steady mood, the deep sleep, the reclaimed evenings, the calm you generate rather than purchase. In a culture that runs on a substance most people never chose to depend on, choosing clarity is its own quiet edge. 6 weeks from now, you'll have it. Let's begin. Professor Hanna, The Sober Advantage.